We've been gifted with a ton of really good and some really bad Overwatch tournaments throughout the last couple years, but one in particular stands out to me personally as the best Overwatch tournament, that being the 2022 Midseason Madness. This absolute behemoth of a tournament lasted a full 6 days and featured 22 full matches, 7 of which were map 5s. This tournament featured 2 different lower bracket runs and a C9 to finish off the finals. Today, I'm going to go over some highlights of this incredible Overwatch tournament and talk about what made this thing so special. But before we get started, a majority of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you like my stuff, you like Overwatch esports, you like the Overwatch League, all that stuff, please subscribe to the channel. We're coming up close on 2K subs, and I'd really like to hit that milestone soon. With all that said though, let's talk a little bit about the context of this tournament. As the name suggests, this tournament took place in the mid-season of 2022, where the top 8 teams from NA and the top 4 teams from APAC competed in a cross-region tournament to figure out which team was on top in the middle of the Overwatch League season. The Shock, Fuel, Gladiators, and Dynasty all got first-round byes, while the remaining teams fought it out in the first round. Something special about this tournament was the different meta, where we got to finally see some Zenyatta play at a high level for the first time in a really long time. Alongside Zen, teams would usually play Ana, Bap, or Lucio. On DPS, we'd usually see Sojourn and Tracer, but occasionally we would see other hit scans like Widow or Ashe. Tank play was usually Doomfist, Ball, or Winston, but none of them were firm requirements. The only one that really showed up in every game was Tracer, but even still, she would get subbed out in a couple matches. This really open meta made it way more refreshing than most metas you see nowadays. Like, we've seen Hazard as the meta right now, everyone remembers the super long Maga meta and the Orisa meta. This one was a breath of fresh air. This just made it so much more refreshing than most metas now, and you get to play a variety of heroes and not just the same one every map. Now, you'd usually see some similar characters, yeah, there was some that would show up a lot, but not always the same ones. In the opening round, we saw the Florida Mayhem get absolutely shit-stomped by the Houston Outlaws, but at least we got to see the Piggy Reinhardt make an appearance on map 2 to hit a shatter on Animo to delay him from touching the second point, allowing for a free cap for Houston. Another match we saw in the first round was a nice 3-0 win for the Shanghai Dragons over the Toronto Defiant, and it was not exactly the closest game, as none of the first round matches really were, but we really did have a moment where the sheer aura of Chorong Zenyatta was enough for Fate to just fall off the map, and you know what? I don't even blame him knowing how good Chorong is now. Fate just didn't want the smoke, and you know, off the map he goes. The other 2 matches in this round though were quite a bit more interesting than these. The Hangzhou Spark went up against the Philadelphia Fusion in a battle of the APAC region, and this one was a lot closer, but ultimately, the Spark were able to come out on top 3-1, mostly due to Shy, who had some pretty good performances on Sojourn. It was pretty clear that these teams were pretty even in skill, and we'd end up seeing a rematch later on. As good as these 3 matches were, the final match of the first round between the Spitfire and the Rain was easily the funniest one. For starters, the Spitfire didn't really have a Zen player, so they put Flex DPS Backbone in on support and called him Boneback. You'd think that having a Flex DPS on Zenyatta would hurt the Spitfire, but instead, Backbone would hit the best Zen clip of the entire tournament by charging a volley and sending it over the rooftops into the Rain spawn, getting a free kill on OG right as he walked out the spawn door. Backbone really had the Rain's number in this game, whether it be on Mei or on Zenyatta, and the Spitfire would win 3-1. Moving on to round 2 in the upper bracket, we would see the LA Gladiators dismantle the Houston Outlaws in a swift 3-0, although there was one tie in the series. The main highlight from this match was Funny Astro and Lastro flipping each other off from across the room. We would also see the San Francisco Shock beat the Spitfire in a pretty close 3-1. The one that we did not expect, though, was the Shanghai Dragons upsetting the Dallas Fuel in a brutal 3-0 thrash. Up until this point, the Fuel were probably a favorite to win this tournament, I'd say like top 3, but the Shanghai Dragons just brought them down to earth. The first map was close, all things considered, but in map 2, Gurio was subbed in for the rest of the season. Yeah, you remember Gurio? And the Dragons just ran the Fuel over, full capping the map with a nice 3k from Lip on Sojourn. The Fuel would end up getting full held as the Dragons looked for an easy 3-0. On Circuit Royale, Lip's Widow was just too much for Dallas to deal with. Not only getting a spawn kill on Gurio, but he also put the map away with a nasty Widow 3k to end the series and move on to upset the Dallas Fuel. But if you thought one huge upset was cool, you'll never believe what happened in the Dynasty vs Spark match. The Dynasty, who were widely considered to be the best team from APAC, were beaten by a Spark team who was just really hitting their stride at the right time. This was when people just started realizing how good players like Alfie and Bernard truly were, and this upset really caught most people off guard. All things considered, this was a pretty close game, with each map being pretty narrow results-wise, for the Spark team to come out on top in each map with a lot of help from Alfie. On map 3, he seems to mind control Smurf to jump directly into Fitz after Alfie sticks him with the Pulse Bomb, which gave the Spark an easy fight win and a nice win condition to finish off the series. This wouldn't be the last we'd see of the Spark squad, and we'll get more to them soon, but for now, we need to dip down into the lower bracket. The first round of the lower bracket was genuinely insane, with 3 out of 4 of the matches going to map 5, with the only non-map 5 being a 4-map battle between the Philadelphia Fusion and the Dallas Fuel, which, despite being the only non-map 5 in this round, was a really good match and a huge upset, as the Fusion were able to take down the Dallas Fuel, shocking everyone. In map 1, Dallas were looking to finish the map off, but a nice whip shot from Fixa interrupts Fielder's Coalescence, and the Fusion are able to capitalize and take map 1. On map 2, the Fusion push it through point B with almost 5 minutes to go, but the Fuel somehow hold the Fusion on point C for a long ass time, and the Fusion are able to cap with only 14 seconds left on the clock. Dallas are able to cap in overtime, and with Sparkle going insane on his signature hero, getting 4 kills and giving the Fuel another chance in this map, they survive. Despite only having a minute left, the Fuel are able to cap A and somehow push it all the way to C, where they manage to full cap the map in overtime, easily winning King's Row and tying up the series. On map 3, it was looking as though the Fuel might have finally found their momentum, because they end up full holding the Fusion on their own map pick, but somehow, someway, the Fusion managed to fuller hold the Dallas Fuel, with Bellisria in particular going nuclear on Wrecking Ball, jumping and killing Fielder on repeat the whole map, and preventing the Fuel from really getting more than 2 total kills on their attack. This seemed to shake up the Fuel because they looked pretty flat on map 4, and the Philadelphia Fusion upset the Dallas Fuel and moved forward in the lower bracket. This match might have been crazy, but there were somehow 3 more map 5s in this same day. The first of which I'm going to cover is the Outlaws vs Defiant game, a match not many people expected to be as good as it was. Both of these teams had been 3-0'd in their previous matches and wanted some revenge. The main highlight of the first map was Muse absolutely balling on Hamster, getting a nice 3k and generally making the Outlaws' lives a little harder. However, it didn't end up mattering, as the Outlaws would end up winning this map. On map 2, our glorious King Hotba goes absolutely nuclear on Zarya, nearly lapping everyone including his own team in ult charge on point A, and he continued his domination, and after this clean 4k, the Defiant are able to full cap the map and force extra rounds. In said extra rounds, Hisu comes up big with a clean Ashe 3k and manages to hold the Outlaws on A, allowing for the Defiant to take map 2. After another 2 back and forth maps, we enter game 5, where Dante decided that enough was enough and that he was not going to get eliminated by the Toronto Defiant, getting a genuine 5k to secure the first round. The Defiant fought back and managed to take point 2, but a nice 4k from Merit shuts Toronto down, and the Outlaws are able to move forward in the lower bracket. Moving to our next back-to-back map 5, we have the incredible reverse sweep by the Florida Mayhem over the London Spitfire. The Spitfire looked as though they had the Mayhem's number, winning maps 1 and 2 in pretty dominant fashion, and the Spitfire were seemingly in control of this series, but on Watchpoint Gibraltar, everything seemed to change. At first, it seemed like London were gonna get a nice 3-0, after the Spitfire were able to hold the Mayhem midway on point B, giving them a very nice win condition. However, the Spitfire's offense just fell apart, and as Xe and Checkmate tore them apart, someone cleaned them up with a nice primal, not allowing Sparker to use his overclock, and the Mayhem are able to bring us to a map 4. After a brutal back and forth, the Mayhem are able to take 4 and bring us to map 5, and it was clear the Spitfire were very shaken up, because they start the map on a different comp other than Reinhardt. And honestly, the Mayhem just took full advantage putting belt to ass and getting 99% before the Spitfire finally got a fight win. The Mayhem obviously can come back, and a huge Coalescence cancel from someone, comboed with Exion's Sojourn, helped shut the Spitfire down to take a 1-0 lead in Map 5. The Spitfire swapped back to the Rhine comp, but it was too little too late, as a Nano Blade from Checkmate swept up 4, and the Mayhem finished the reverse sweep to upset the London Spitfire. The final Map 5 of the first round was the insane back and forth series between the number 3 Seoul Dynasty and the number 9 seed Atlanta Reign. On Map 1, we were gifted with a Zarya duel between Smurf and Hawk. Smurf gets nanoed and lands a huge craft, killing Ultraviolet and getting cleanup kills on the Reign to extend their lead. We end up going to 99-99, and Kai opened this overtime fight with a huge one-tap onto Fitz. But the Dynasty are able to stall long enough for him to come back, and they begin to get some picks. The Dynasty kills everyone but Venom, but they seemingly don't pay attention to the point, and the Dynasty C9. Giving the Reign a huge point win that they probably shouldn't have had. The Reign used this newfound momentum to dominate in round 3, and the Reign take a 1-0 lead that the Dynasty choked away. On Map 2, Stalker gets subbed in, and his Sojourn was just lights out. The Dynasty were able to hold the Reign on point B, with Stalker getting a nice 4K to tie up the series. Map 3 was Circuit Royale, so you already know we were going to get a Widow duel between Kai and Fitz. Kai got the better of him most of the map, and the surprising hit-scan duo of Nero and Kai ended up helping the Reign get to a 2-1 lead. Map 4 was Colosseo, and this was just another Stalker masterclass, where his Sojourn helped lead the Dynasty to a very narrow map win. This brings us to our third Map 5 in a row, and the Reign start out hot with a pretty clean round win. With the Dynasty, we're going to go out without a fight, and on round 2, Prophet responds with a nice Electric Cowboy 2K Deadeye to help the Dynasty get back in the map. Finally, we get to round 3, winner takes all, and after a final overtime fight that seemed to last forever, the Atlanta Reign are able to complete the upset, taking down the number 1 seed from APAC and moving forward in the lower bracket. With that upset, we have officially made it through the first round, and there's still so many great games to go. We move back up to the upper bracket, where we got the San Francisco Shock hitting the Shanghai Dragons with a clean 3-0. But the other upper bracket match was an absolute banger. The LA Gladiators and the Hangzhou Spark battled it out in one of the best matches of the year. Map 1 was Oasis, and the Spark seemed to have this one under control. After a pretty nice round 1 win, Reiner decides to break out the Roadhog, but he is no Chunbin, and he has to swap over to match Bernard on the Wrecking Ball. After a very close 99-99, the Spark are able to take Map 1, and the Glads fight back by taking Map 2. But on Dorado, Map 3, Shy gets nanoed and goes absolutely nuclear, getting a very clean Sojourn 4K to help shut down the Glads' offense. The Spark are able to stop the Glads on C and set their win condition. However, the Spark are pretty dominant on their offense, storming through the Glads' defense and manage to cap with a good amount of time remaining, taking a 2-1 lead in the series. Map 4 was Colosseo, and the Gladiators take control early in the map, getting the checkpoint with over 7 minutes to go, and the Glads are able to tie this thing up and bring us to a Map 5 on Ilios. Funny Astro gets subbed in, and he makes his presence known on round 1 by booping Alpha Yi's Echo into the Ilios well. You might be asking yourself, how did he manage to boop a flying character? Well, Alpha Yi duplicated Shu's Ana, and as the dupe was killed, I guess Alpha Yi's cooldowns just wouldn't work, and they wouldn't let him fly back out due to the delay. With that free pick, the Gladiators are able to win in overtime and take round 1. After a brutal back and forth, we get to 99-99, and Patty Fan comes up clutch. He gets a massive 4K blade in overtime to wipe the Spark and clutch up the series for the LA Gladiators, sending them to face the San Francisco Shock in the upper bracket finals. Definitely one of the best moments from the tournament, and one of the best highlights from Patty Fan's short Overwatch League career. With our 2 remaining upper bracket survivors, let's move back down to the lower bracket and take a look at some highlights. The Houston Outlaws and the Atlanta Reign once again met up after that brutal Hawk Despair C9 from earlier in the stage, and the Reign clearly wanted revenge. Prior to this match, we yet again got Lastro flipping his opponents off, which was hilarious because Lastro just truly doesn't care about getting fined. Aside from Map 1, this match was pretty securely a Reign win. On map 3, we did have the series tied up 1-1, and Pelican decided to do something very funny. Pelican hid in the corner and waited for Kai, his former teammate, to walk out of the room before immediately hitting him with a full set of stickies and straight up assassinating him before flying out. In response, Kai called him a nerd in the chat, which did make Pelican laugh. Luckily for Kai though, he got the last laugh, not only winning this map, but also winning the whole series. This match was also very strange because we got to witness the Piggy vs Hawk Winston battle. Two off-tanks with very little monkey experience going head-to-head, and suffice to say, this was something. Both teams struggled, but in the end, the rain did get the better of them in a brutal win on Colosseo, with a nice 3k from Kai to finish them all off. The rain moved on to face the Shanghai Dragons in a rematch of the 2021 Grand Finals. The other lower bracket match, the Mayhem vs Fusion, was yet another insane Map 5 series. Get used to it. This match would continue the ongoing bit of the Ballos Rhea, whose Wrecking Ball was surprisingly a really serious problem for everyone the Fusion went up against. In the opening fight, Ballos Rhea would kill both supports and even get the finishing blow on someone. As a whole, neither of these teams had very crazy expectations, but here they were, fighting in one of the best matches of the whole tournament. The Fusion would continue to do well on Ilios Ruins, with Ballos Rhea getting another 2k, including a nice boop onto Exi. After the Fusion won round 1, the Mayhem would respond with a ton of pressure, playing their ball comp with equal aggression, and after a tight 99-99 round, the Mayhem would end up tying up map 1. Despite how well the Fusion were doing, something just went wrong in round 3, because the Mayhem dominated their way to a 100-0 finish and took a 1-0 lead in the series. Map 2 wasn't really that interesting, with the Fusion dominating the map and winning 3-0, but we head into map 3 with a 1-1 tie. Despite being on Watchpoint Gibraltar, the Winston map, the Fusion decided to roll out with the Ballos Rhea to go up against someone's Winston. Despite this weird choice, the Fusion still managed to hold the Mayhem on C, but they fell pretty flat on their offense, with some nice Winston play from someone securing the map for the Mayhem and giving them a 2-1 lead in the series. The Fusion weren't going to go down without a fight though, and on New Queen Street, the Fusion were able to get a really nice lead, after Hydron's EMP was shut down from a nice 2k by MN3's Ash. The Fusion ended up getting all the way to 111 meters, and at that point, it was just too much of a lead for the Mayhem to come back against, giving the Fusion another map win and tying up the series 2-2. Map 5 was Lijiang Tower, and the Mayhem took an early 1-0 lead, and on round 2, they took a 74-0% lead. Late in round 2, Hexy pops his OC and obliterates MN3 and Fixa, but Ballos Rhea wasn't just gonna let that shit stand, and he slaps that motherfucker right off the map. This opens up a window for the Fusion to get back in and take round 2, setting us up to a round 3 to decide this 5-map series. We get all the way to 99-99, and the Fusion and Mayhem trade kills. Zeth gets a huge pulse kill onto RuPaul, allowing for MN3 to come in and eliminate Onimo and Exi, taking the Mayhem down in a brutal map 5 finish. The Fusion managed to continue their lower bracket run and will advance to face the Hangzhou Spark in a rematch. We'll stay in the lower bracket as we move on to the top 6, watching the Atlanta Reign and the Shanghai Dragons face off in the 2021 Finals rematch. And this was one of the closest series of the entire tournament, despite the 3-1 scoreline. Map 1 brings us right back to Lijiang Tower, and we ended up seeing Hawk on ball. To say this was a cursed sight was an understatement, and the Dragons stomped the Reign in round 1, 100-0. Clearly the ball was not a great pick, but on round 2, we got to see him swap off, so thank goodness. In said round, we were grifted with a truly clean Li Jie Gon 2k boop, that ended up getting followed up with a certified Fi Jie Gon moment, as he gets lost in the sauce and decides to try to 1v1 Kai on Sojourn. And Kai was not about to let that shit stand, and shut that motherfucker down. After the Reign tie it up, we get a Doomfist 1v1 for the ages. However, Fleta hits Hawk with a clean pulse bomb right as he lands from his Meteor Strike, allowing for an easy point flip. After a brutally long fight, the Reign are able to clutch up and take the map and take a 1-0 lead in the series. On map 2, we yet again get to witness Hawk on main tank, and we get to see the Hawk Winston go up against Fate, and you know what? Honestly, it was pretty solid. Now, was it Fearless level? Not even close, but it wasn't bad. Lip was just too good on the Sojourn though, hitting shots like this and just shutting the rain down. Lip continued to dominate on his attack, getting a clean 3k to finish off the map and tie up the series. Circuit Royale was map 3, and as per usual on this map, we get a very hype Widow 1v1 between Kai and Lip. On point B, Fleta tries to get a nice overclock, but he stands fucking still and just lets Kai get the freest shot of his life, which he follows it up with a nice kill onto Bebe to try to hold Shanghai. Kai continues to dominate in the next fight by hitting another clean 2k, but Lip wasn't just gonna let this stand. And on his attack, Kai goes up for a jump shot, but Lip absolutely denies him. In the final fight, Kai does get the best of Lip, and with their best player dead, the Shanghai Dragons crumble and the Reign can take a nice 2-1 lead. Coliseum was map 4, and honestly, I really can't do this map justice by just describing it. So, after you're done watching this video, and subscribing, you should really go watch this map. It was really back and forth, and it really looked like the Dragons were going to take this map to tie it up, especially with Kai dead. But OG gets boostioed, and with Venom on the respawn, him, Hawk, and OG are able to clean up Shanghai and win the match, getting revenge for the previous season's finals, and now the Atlanta Reign move on in the lower bracket to face the winner of the Fusion and the Spark. Alright, lock yourselves in, it's time for another map 5, as we get to watch the rematch between the Philadelphia Fusion and the Hangzhou Spark. And suffice to say, the Fusion want revenge for their upper bracket loss. Thanks to a 2k overclock from MN3, the Fusion are able to take the first round, but on round 2, Shy hits them with a nasty Ash 2k, 1-tapping Zest and 2-tapping MN3 to help tie this map up. The Spark win a fight for free due to a one-shot from Shy onto Zest, and in overtime, a sleep dart from Irony leads to Bella's Rhea's death, allowing for the Spark to take map 1. Starting map 2, Zest straight up executes Alpha Yi's Echo, but Irony is able to get revenge for his fallen teammate. On point B, Bernard shuts Fury down with a nice rock to cancel his flux, because Bernard is just built like that. Even back in 2022, Bernard is just built different. On the Fusion defense, Zest finds a way to fall off the map as Echo, after going for an under-the-map flank, and he wasn't able to fly his way back out. Luckily for Zest, Fixa is able to bail him out with a huge nade, and after Zest swaps over to Genji, the Fusion are able to hold the Spark on C and tie up the series. On Dorado, we finally get a Gushui appearance, but he was more of a spectator to the absolute dominance that Shy was able to perform. On point B, Shy gets a very casual 4k, while Gushui just bats people around for him to shoot like Shy was in the training range. Even though the Fusion had a much larger time bank, the Spark shut them down on C, with the Nano overclock making it very difficult for the Fusion to touch, and the Spark are able to take a nice 2-1 lead in the series. On New Queen Street, the Fusion get a nice lead, even getting the checkpoint, but Shy responds with another 4k, including a nice one-tap where he absolutely domes Fixa. The Spark push with their momentum to also try to get the lead, but they're unable to get the checkpoint. Later, Bernard goes to get a huge grab, but his grab just kinda disappears. Like, I'm not exactly sure where this one went. Maybe it got cancelled by a sleep or something, but without his ult, the Fusion are able to extend their lead, and it was just too much for the Spark to handle. The Fusion tie it up and bring us to map 5, where we return back to Lijiang Tower yet again for another Fusion map 5. After both teams take a round, we return to a round 3 finish, and we get all the way to overtime. But out of all the things, Belos Rhea's mines are the actual thing that saved today. Getting not 1, but 2 mine kills, and securing their revenge match for the Fusion, as they'll advance to face the Atlanta Reign to see who will continue their incredible lower bracket run. But before we get to that match, we're gonna have to go back up to the upper bracket one last time to watch the San Francisco Shock and LA Gladiators face off to see who will make it to the grand finals. Up until this point, I really haven't talked about the Shock, but that's because they 3-0'd every team they faced until this point. And Proper in particular was playing at an insane level all tournament long. Despite this, the first highlight isn't gonna be him, and instead I'll be showing off this nice Winston 3k from Reiner, which is the main reason the Glads clutched this point and this map. On Eichenwald, the Shock hold the Gladiators on B, and after this 2k pulse bomb from Proper, the Shock are looking to take the map away with relative ease. The Shock pushed their momentum and steamrolled their way in for an easy map win to tie up the series. We move on to Circuit Royale for map 3, and Proper decided that he wanted to go nuclear. Normally on Circuit, we watched the Widow 1v1, which is between Kilo and Ons this time, but the more interesting matchup was actually the Sojourn duel between Proper and Kevster. The Shock managed a full cap on their offense, and on defense, Proper hits one of the nastiest Sojourn 5Ks of the whole year, getting 3 kills with his OC and shutting down an overclock from Kevster. This is still, to this day, one of the best Sojourn plays in Overwatch, and this really hurt the Gladiators' push. Kevster tried to fight back with a nice 2K, but ultimately it was way too late, and the Shock take them down and take a 2-1 lead in the series. Map 4 was Colosseo, and holy shit, what a map. I'm not sure what it is about this tournament and having crazy Colosseo games, but this is definitely one of the ones that are up there. The Shock were dominating to say the least for the first half of this map, and I thought this was going to be a really boring game. They took a massive 106 meter lead early in the game, and this lead was also boosted by an Ajax from Funny Astro, who thought Proper wouldn't be able to finish him off when he decided to beat with only 52 HP left. Somehow, despite this insane deficit, Gladiators kept fighting. Kevster opened up their push with a nice 2K bomb, with another 2K to follow it up, casual Kevin things. This play was assisted by Sam, who thought it would be a really smart idea to slide directly into Finn once he got stuck by a pulse bomb. The Gladiators managed to push the cart all the way to 100 meters, and in OT, they are somehow able to retake the lead with the map after starting out with a 100 meter deficit. With that wild win, the series is now tied up 2-2, and we move to Oasis for map 5. However, despite the crazy clutch from the last map, the Shock would actually get their revenge by 100-0 obliterating the Glads on round 1. The Glads would now have to try to clutch up, and we were gifted with the Kaluge vs Reiner Roadhog 1v1, which, despite giving us some very funny moments, didn't last very long, as both of them would have to switch. And, with one last final fight, the Shock clutched this thing up and advanced to the Grand Finals. With the Shock now in Grand Finals, we can go back to the lower bracket to take a look at the Fusion vs Reign to see which lower bracket run will be able to continue to face the LA Gladiators in finals. However, as much as another map 5 would have been pretty cool, this match was not quite as competitive as I would have liked. In the first 2 maps, the Reign kinda beat the shit out of the Fusion. On Lijiang, the Reign 100-0'd the Fusion on round 1, and although round 2 was a little closer, the Reign were firmly in control. On King's Row, the Reign nearly full capped the map, and on defense, they full hold the Fusion in a brutal fashion. Honestly, it kinda seemed like this one was over, but on Route 66, suddenly the Fusion began to fight back. I don't know what happened, something must have clicked, because the Reign barely made it through A, capping that in overtime. But they didn't make it much farther, getting stopped on B and giving the Fusion a really nice win condition. Surprisingly, the heroes of this map weren't the usual suspects, but instead it was Belosria and Aim God on Zenyatta. These two low-key went pretty hard in this map, getting a ton of kills and just really making it difficult for the Reign. They continued to pressure, and ultimately they took the map with relative ease, and all of a sudden it looked like we might have a series on our hand. In map 4, we once again move over to Colosseo, and although this map was pretty back and forth, it was the ending that left everyone stunned. Hawk dies on the point, and Belosria, Zest, and Fixa all start pushing the bot back. But in the final moments, Kai throws down his Disruptor shot, which kills Zest. He then hits and kills Belosria with a railgun shot, and he ends up buying enough time for Venom to return and help clean up Fixa. After this insane almost 1v3 clutch, this ends up winning them the series, and the Reign just turned to look at Kai in absolute disbelief, who, is completely stoic, no shocker. With this win, the Reign are ended up to extend this already wild lower bracket run and make it all the way to the lower bracket finals to face the LA Gladiators. From losing in round 1, finishing top 3, and to eliminating 3 out of 4 of the APAC teams, what a wild run this team had. It's a real shame the Gladiators were about to put it to an end. We finally move on to lower bracket finals, and map 1 was Ilios. The Reign took an early lead, but a slick pulse bomb from Kevin and some nice follow-up mean that the Glads are able to take it back. Kevster was consistently a beast this whole series, and as much as I love Venom, Kevster was hard diffing him on Tracer. Like, look at this shit, are we so for real? In the second round, OG looks like Sam Darnold the way he's seeing ghosts, and he hits this terrible two-man beat to ruin the Rain's chances at a comeback in this map. After this atrocity, the Glads are able to take a nice 1-0 lead, but the Rain weren't going to go down that easily, and we move over to King's Row for map 2. On B, Pattyfan managed to get 3 kills with his Dragon Blade, but Hawk and Venom managed to not only kill him, but sweep up most of the Glads, and somehow this fight that had a nice 3k in it ends up with no real winner. Both teams come back and recontest. The Gladiators do manage to cap with 34 seconds remaining, but something happened, and on offense, the Rain were dominant, finishing the map with 3 minutes and 15 seconds on the clock. In extra rounds, the Gladiators just weren't able to cap, and on the Rain's attempt, OG is able to shut down Pattyfan's Blade, and the Rain tie the series up 1-1. Map 3 was Watchpoint Gibraltar, and this one was not very close. As much as I love Hawk, his Winston just couldn't compete with an actual main tank player, and the Gladiators were able to full hold the Rain in a pretty dominant showing. They took an easy map win and are now up 2-1. After that disaster, the Rain really needed to bounce back on Colosseo, but a nice 2k from Kevster onto both Rain supports really slowed down their momentum. The Rain take a small lead, but in overtime, the Gladiators barely win a fight, with only Kevster and Pattyfan remaining. However, the Rain just couldn't touch, and the Gladiators were able to move on to the Grand Finals to face the San Francisco Shock, eliminating the Atlanta Rain in 3rd place. And now, we finally move on to the Grand Finals, where the San Francisco Shock and the LA Gladiators will face off to see who will win this massive tournament. Quick reminder, every Grand Final in Overwatch usually goes to a 1-4 instead of 3. We move over to Ilios for map 1, and both teams trade rounds as we move to Lighthouse for the tiebreaker. Proper opens up the round with a nice 2k pulse bomb, which helps the Shock get an early 97% lead. This doesn't seem to phase the Glads though, as they're able to fight back with the quickness and can take map 1. On Eichenwald, the Gladiators would full cap the map thanks to a nice blade from Kevin. The Shock tried a match, but after a good point A push, they just fall apart on B, and their nearly 5-minute time bank gets reduced to nothing, as the Gladiators manage to hold out and take an early 2-0 lead. Map 3 was Watchpoint Gibraltar, and we get to see Ons and Kilo have a Widow 1v1. Ons gets a clean headshot onto Kilo, allowing for a Glads push. The Glads continued their push and managed to full cap the map with over a minute remaining. On the Shock's offense, they sweep through A, but Ons seemed to lock in, and he went ballistic on B, getting multiple kills, including this nice double kill onto both supports. The Shock barely survive, and they manage to get through the round in overtime, which does give the Glads a bigger time bank, and they end up capping in extra rounds, giving them a nice 3-0 lead. Now at this point, most people were probably thinking, oh, this is over, it's going to be a 4-0. But the Shock weren't done yet. We move over to New Queen Street, and the Gladiators take another early lead. The Shock are able to answer back though with a lead of their own, and in overtime, the Shock managed to finally get it done and take a map off the Glads. We move over to map 5, which is Lijiang Tower, and maybe the pressure of being in Grand Finals is able to get to Sam, because there is no reason bro should be on Torb. Finn decides to be a little funny, and he nanos Sam on Torb, but he does manage to get 2 kills with it. In overtime, to the surprise of no one, Sam gets absolutely dunked on by Reiner, but Proper refuses to lose, and he managed to get 2 kills, helping the Shock to a round win. On round 2, Sam decides to stop trolling, and the Shock easily get it done, sending us to a map 6 with a 3-2 score. We move over to Dorado, which once again featured an Ons vs Kilo Widow duel, and these two locked in for this one. Kevster decided that he wasn't going to be overshown, and he reminds everyone that he is the EU GOAT with a nice 3k. The Shock barely managed to cap C with some help from a nanoed Proper, and the Glads now must match them. This just seemed to be all too easy for LA, as Kevin helped lead them to a nice full cap, having 2 full minutes for extra rounds. Despite the Shock only having a minute on the time bank, Kilo gets a pick onto Ons, giving Shock point A. Now, it's overtime, and the Shock have to fight their way into B. They push all the way to the end of B before a nanoed Kevster stops their push. This push was more than enough though for the Shock to win, and now the Glads must somehow match them. The Shock are able to hold them to overtime, but the Gladiators can manage to take point A, and overtime will continue. Reiner goes down early from a proper pulse bomb, but Skewed and Ons come up big to keep the push rolling. The Shock have more than enough time to come back, but disaster strikes, as Mikey just doesn't touch the fucking point, and the Shock lose the best Overwatch tournament of all time to a C9. What an insane and awful way for this series to end. This whole tournament was fantastic, and as the Gladiators celebrate, you can watch Patty Finn climb over the fucking table to join his team in celebration. There truly was no tournament quite like the 2022 Midseason Madness, which was absolutely full of great games, tons of highlights, a lot of lowlights, couple C9s, and 2 full lower bracket runs. This tournament was truly peak Overwatch, and I will forever look on it fondly. If you liked this video, subscribing really goes a long way. I put way too much time into this video, and if you've watched to the end, then I assume you probably liked it. So do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, it'll really help me out. With all that said, I really do hope you all enjoyed. I've got more stuff on the way, so stay tuned, and thank you all so much for watching.